Alrighty, so now I actually at the end of last video I realized I said we were going to do the assignment part, but there is one more step we need to do. And this is just a basic setup, okay? So these are commands that you're going to need to do. And the reason we're doing them here is if we wait until we do the command, the git commits or the workflow, we call it, down here, we'll have to do it anyway. So might as well get it done. So what I would recommend is just copy and don't copy the $sign. So copy this, and the $sign just means the command line. So I'm going to go to here. All right, and by the way, if you're not already in here, open up VS Code, open up base folder. Now, it doesn't matter which of these we're in right now because these commands are just for your system. So I'm going to right click and notice again how in that right click, right, you get it automatically copies. Now, here's where whatever you used for your username, and this is just the name you use there, you'd want to put. Okay, so you will do that one. And then you'll do the other one. I've already done this piece, so you'll need to do these two, give it your email, and then when you're done, do the last one. And the reason you want to do that one is that that actually just listed out. You can see here's mine already set up. That's why I didn't run those commands. I guess I could have, it wouldn't have hurt. So make sure you get that set up, right? So these are just, now this is one time. You only have to do this one time. And actually I should move this one time up to here because this one time and what we're about to do only has to be done one time as well. Now, when we were creating our repos originally, I talked about that you want to create what's called a git ignore. And all that says is that this file, whatever's located in here, the system of Git will not version control certain files like setup files for VS Code. And it's just something you want to know how to do. And it works just a little differently. So let me just walk you through. Although we're going to use this Git process to actually check that file in, version control it. So I'm going to grab, because I don't like to type always, that name, which is the .git ignore, and it's a file. Now in this case, it's different in the sense that it doesn't have the first part of the file in the extension. This is the file name. And the link here is to, and I'm going to go ahead and click on this, but I'm not going to copy it yet, is to an example of what we're going to use as far as what goes in there. Okay. All right, notice how this actually is a .git ignore, but it's not the kind of file. Anyway, let's just do it. I think it's easier to do it. Now we're going to do this work also in our local system. And we want to do this work for all three repos. So we'll end up, no, I don't want to move it. No, I don't want to move it. So let's go over here. Okay. So now in this private repo, and this is something you'll learn as we work through Git, is I'm going to say right click. I'm going to say open an integrated terminal. Oh, that's a new interface. No, it's just bigger. So now what happened, and you can tell by looking at the output on Bash. Again, yours might look a little different here, right? If I do, there's what's in this folder is actually lectures. We didn't even talk about that before because that's what we've created in this private one. So under this one, and the reason we're opening it in the command line is because of the commands we're about to do, but we're going to go ahead and create the file by having highlighted the private repo. And then over here, there's three icons. And the first icon is create a file, create a folder. That's a refresh. And this is just to collapse it. So what we want to do is select new file, making sure you're in the private repo. And I'm just going to paste that name in, which is that .git ignore. Okay. And now I'm going to go back over to the browser. I'm going to select all this code. Okay. I'm going to copy that. Go back to VS Code, and now I'm going to do that again, or I'm going to copy that in. So now what's happened is I actually have now changed, and this is already beginning the workflow of understanding how what we do is we code locally and then we push to GitHub. So this is great because you're going to learn, you're going to have 3 times that you're going to update something locally and you're going to push it to GitHub. So let's actually do those next commands. Okay, so let me just show them to you in case you want to refer back. So now that we've set this up, we're going to do this every time we do work. Now we're going to end up doing files and index files that you've created one, but you'll do all the work locally. And this is what I mean by each time, right? Each time you do work, and you'll learn more as we go. Okay. So now back here, I am going to go to the command line and I'm going to figure out why it must have hmm, must have gotten some of my returns somewhere else. Anyway, here I'm going to type get status. Now get status is saying you have a file here that's untracked, which by the way, this little interface over here is actually the equivalent, but I tell students learn the command line, okay? So what it's saying is I have a file that it's untracked. So we're going to track it by doing git. Let me just clear it. And that is over in Canvas if you want to see it. Git add. And in this case, we're actually going to give it the actual name, GIT. And as soon as I start typing, look at what happened. I hit the tab. So I did .git, I hit tab, and it automatically filled in the rest, so I didn't have to type it, because by hitting tab, it will look to see if that file is there. And for me, it was. Very cool. And now I'm going to commit it. Okay, so git commit -m space open quote, and I'm going to say adding git ignore file. Okay. So now I've done the git workflow, which is I've created the file, I've updated the contents of the file, I then added that file into my local repo, okay, my git local, and now I'm going to actually push it. Okay, so all the commands I've done so far are just for the local system. And I just want to show you this before I do it, because I'm going to have you'll end up doing this for all three, and I'll have you do that on your side on your own just to get that experience. But let's go back. Let's go back to just GitHub for a second, because I'm working, I believe, on my private one. So I'm going to go to CIT82. Might be a good idea at this point to create a bookmark. That way you can always go back. That's probably a better way to do it. So under private right now, we don't see that git ignore. And that the one thing about a git ignore, and let's go ahead and do it so you can see it, is we're going to do this last command. Okay, we're going to do the git commit. Well, sorry, not that we did the commit. We're going to do the git push. And this is where it pushes it to GitHub. But this is probably not the best one to start with. I'm going to do push. Now this is where it's going to move it up to GitHub and pushes it up to GitHub. So now what's on GitHub and what's on my local system should be the same. So let's go over here and hit refresh. And this is where it's like, Rio, you could have chosen a better example because the git ignore file is the one file that doesn't actually show up. It's actually hidden at this point, and it's because of the way we've created it. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to, at this point, go ahead and pause this video. I want you to clone the other two. So let me just give you a little hints here. Okay, so what you'd want to do is do this same, and actually at this point you could just copy it from here, because you're going to do the same thing, right, where you copy it, and now come over to the, we did it in the private. No, that's the one we were in, right? So now I'm going to right click. I'm going to say open in integrated terminal. Great. And I'm going to close this because I'm going to create that same file. Could you copy the file? Possibly. That's something you could play with. But you're going to create the file, that same exact git ignore, and you're going to create that file and do exactly what we did up here. Okay? Create the file for your public one, and then you're going to create that file for your GitHub IO. So I'm going to pause. You do it on your side, and then we'll come back and look at it. Okay, so I'm doing my last one, and I thought I'm going to bring you back at this point because I've done the commands, and now I'm actually on my last one. So I've done it for the git, for my public, for my private. I've done it for those two, and now I'm doing it for my GitHub IO. And one thing I want to show you is that when the directory is green, that means you've added new things into here. Oh, There's one thing I realize I need to tell you is by default, and I recommend you do this on your side. I should have told you sooner, but I'm glad I'm telling you now. Hit File and hit Automatic Save. Otherwise, what happens is without that turned on, oh yeah, that's really important, Rio. I'm actually, did I turn it off? Yeah, I'm going to turn it off for a minute because I'm going to show you what happens is like when you modify files, they have this little circle over there, which means they're not updated. And what having file auto save gives you is it automatically, as soon as you do anything, automatically saves it. So that's one thing. Okay. So sorry if that messed you up. I'll actually mention that in the weekly attendance so you'll remember. Okay. At this point, also because I know the next command I need to do is let's see if it is in here. I'm using the up arrow right now to actually cycle through commands. Oh, it's not making me very happy because, oh, there it is. Now it should be here. It's not in here. So in the future, as you do more of these commands, they're loaded on history, and you can use the up arrow and the down arrow to cycle through them. And remember also, right click, open an integrated terminal, put you in that folder. Okay, so now I'm going to do the git commit -m space, right? Adding dot GAIT Cool. And now that I've added it into the local repo, right, it's now no longer green, but my local repo and GitHub are now different. So let me not go there, come down here and do git push. So now all of my repos locally are good. There's no changes that are different from here to there. So the last thing I'm going to do is actually now that you've done the git, matter of fact, actually, you know what? I think I'm going to leave that for the next conversation. So if you get through this, you've made a great stride in increasing your knowledge about this. Actually, I realize this is the discussion. My bad here. Okay. So I think I'll just do something different here. So look for just one more video about this.